All right, so we're in our last section of Unit 8. Actually, that should be 8.5. That is wrong. We have learned how to graph systems. We've learned how to use substitution and elimination to solve systems. Today, we're going to go back to systems, graphing them, but instead of graphing equations, linear equations, we're going to be graphing linear inequalities. Now, you already know how to do this. You learned how to graph linear inequalities in Unit 7. So the first thing that we're going to do is just on your notes, just recall what you have to do to graph a linear inequality. So the first thing that you have to do is graph the boundary line, and this is just your simple slope-intercept form, y equals mx plus b. All right, so you're going to graph your boundary line. You have to decide if it's a solid or dashed line, and that is determined by your inequality sign. If the inequality is greater than or equal to, less than or equal to, it's a solid. The dashed line is less than or greater than. So that's the first thing you have to do is graph your boundary line. Then step 2, if you recall, we used a tester. And in our cases, we selected our tester as 0, 0, unless that point was on the line, and it rarely was. So you're going to use the tester to determine if the inequality is true or false. Okay, so you put your little tester, remember we made it a little star, on your graph, and then you're going to take the 0 for x and y, and then check to see if your statement, your inequality statement is true or false. And then step 3 was your shading. Can't graph an inequality without the shading. You have to shade the portion of the coordinate plane that contains the solution. So if you remember, if your tester point had a true inequality, you would shade the portion with the tester point. If the tester point made the inequality false, then you would shade the other side. So this is just a review of what we learned in Unit 7. Now, let's go to the next part here of your notes. You can write that down. We're dealing with systems. Remember, this is your unit on systems. So when we talk about a linear system of inequalities, it's going to look very similar to a linear system of linear equations. So you see where it says on your notes, linear system of inequalities. All right. Basically, it's going to be 2 inequalities. And it could be more than that, but we're just going to stick with 2 because that's about all we can handle in our system. So you're going to have 2 inequalities with 2 variables, all right? And you're going to pretty much have it look just like we did for our linear equation, but instead of equal signs, you would see less than, equal to, and all that. So here's an example of a linear inequality, a system of linear inequalities. I could have x minus y is greater than 7, and then I could give you 2x plus y is less than 8, and then that would be your system. You can only graph linear inequalities. There is no substitution or elimination. You can only solve them through graphing. And I'm going to stop the video. In the next one, I'll tell you the steps that you need to follow to graph